Hey everybody, my name is Isaiah Strozier. I am the social media guy for the Institute for Family. I'm the guy answering all your DMs and liking your comments and retweeting all that kind of stuff. Today, we want to continue the conversation. A while ago, we had our first ever webinar in our 3-part series entitled The Unlearning of Child Welfare. We have actually 2 more webinars to go. So if you haven't already, you're going to want to go to our website, instituteforfamily.org, and sign up for those future webinars. We had over 600 participants tune into the conversation and our first webinar, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you guys so much. And we want to continue the conversation. So today we're going to go dive back into our webinar and answer some questions from the chat. Questions and comments, and just kind of go through them. So today on the video, we have Matt, who is the director of Institute for Family, and Shrounda, who was a panelist on our first webinar, and she is the public policy director for Children's Home Society. So let's go ahead and bring our 2 guests on. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Yeah, doing great. Good to see you, Shrounda.
It is good to be back together once again, Matt.
Yep.
Awesome. So as I said, we're going to be answering some questions and topics from the chat, and I'm ready to dive right into it. You guys ready?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yep, ready.
Okay. So our first question comes from Katrina, and she says, I'm torn on whether the child welfare system can be reformed. And if not, what could take its place? Matt, how do you respond to Katrina's concern?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. So I'm glad we're answering this one. I think it's a really, really important question. I think it's kind of a both and I think that, we have to continue to do the work that's already taking place and has been going on for years, really, to reform or, improve our foster care system. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to have kids and families involved in our foster care system. And I think Family First is moving us in a really good direction. I think that there are a number of other things happening at the local level and states that are about reform and improving our foster care system. So that needs to continue. We're engaged in that here in North Carolina. But I think that the idea of reforming foster care will not do what we all really want to see happen for families. We're not going to reform foster care to the place where we're going to see families thriving. We have to do something new and different that exists outside of the current foster care system that's going to allow us to really move in the direction of addressing the conditions that so many families face and doing the work that is about strengthening families. So, I see it as a both and kind of situation. So, Shrounda, I don't know, what do you say to that?
Once again, I don't think that this is a area where we just say one thing needs to happen so that we can get to where we're trying to get to. I don't necessarily think that the system can be reformed. I think that that the system will some ways operate as it always has. The question is, for me, is can we stop so many children actually having to encounter that system? And I think that's where our work is. I think that we have a system in place that we put government in this position of, they are the answer and they are the call. And I'm just really clear that we are the answer and we are the call. And the more that we step into that position of supporting and taking care of each other, the more we will be able to benefit those that need us the most. So it's not a pass the buck, right? The buck stops here. And when you encounter families and you have people that are finding struggles, that we step in. I've learned actually in COVID, which has been a really fantastic place of learning. And I've seen some struggles, and I have taken my blessings and opportunities, and I've shared that. Right? I haven't said, oh, you go do this or you go do that, right? It's just like, here's what I have to offer. And here are some other things that could be in the place while you're trying to figure out where you need to get to. So I'm hands-on, right? We got to get in here and get in with folks. So I don't think that the system can be reformed. I don't think that that's where we're at. But I think that if we put less children into the system, that the people that are actually working in the system will have the bandwidth to actually address those needs. The system doesn't have the time and it doesn't have the resources. Let's give them both of those things by not having so many children actually go into that system.
Yeah, and Kristen's comment, she was in our chat as well. Shout out, Kristen. Kristen kind of has a comment or a question that's kind of in the same vein. So, Sharon, I want to ask you this. Kristen asked, do we change child welfare from the inside or outside of the overall system? Where do you think that starting point is?
And I think once again, it just piggybacks off of Matt, right? It's not an either or, it's a both, right? We should be doing things from the inside of the system, and we should be doing things from the outside of the system and coming together. You need all sectors in this for us to actually create something monumental and significant. And when I say all sectors, that's the government, that's nonprofit, that's for-profit, that's philanthropy, right? That's community. Those are your community members. Like, we need everyone to kind of put themselves in the middle of this. When we say we care about children, right? My question is do your actions actually demonstrate that? Or are you just talking the talk? Or can you walk the walk, right? When we see somebody who's suffering or struggling, do we actually come and answer that call, right? Once again, it's really getting in the middle of this thing, really asking all of us to come to the table and be unified in a common solution and destination, which is the betterment, not just for our children, but for all of us, right? Parents, community, society. This isn't a silo thing. This is a unified thing. And the more that we come together and understand that we're in the middle of this together, there is no separation in humanity. It should all be unified, and it should be all collective vision of we want something better, and I'm willing to be a part of the solution and not just espousing the problem.
Yeah, I love that. We asked this question to the chat. What do we need to unlearn about the child welfare system? And Kim chimed in and she said, we need to unlearn that we know what's best. How can we know what's best for someone else? Matt, I think Kim makes a great point here. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think it is a great point. I'm glad it showed up. I don't think we can know what's best for someone else. We can't know everything about the other person, right? I think the best thing we can do is really try to understand. We should be listening and learning first. Um, and we should recognize that if our work is to strengthen families, which I'll just go back to the last question for a second, because I really agree with what Shrounda's saying about this is about coalition building, this is about partnerships, this is about the different stakeholders and sectors coming together and creating something new, imagining and creating something new that does exist outside of the current child welfare system, that is focused on this idea of strengthening families and addressing the conditions that so many families face. That's the work ahead of us. And we want to make foster care better, but that's the real work ahead of us. And I think to do that work, we have to do it in partnership with youth, parents, families. We have to be engaging, getting proximate, building relationships, listening to and learning from the families that are experiencing the system as it is today. And I think we have to create space for them to be equal partners with us. If we're going to create something new that we can really be proud of, it has to be a co-created kind of thing. We have to have professional expertise. We have to have lived expertise. We have to come together to do this work. And I think what that requires of me, anyway, as a professional, it requires of me to recognize that I don't always know what's best. I'm not always the expert. It's not my job to create for people. It's my job to oftentimes step back and create together with people or be led by people that have lived these experiences. And that, to me, that's a recognition that I don't know what's best, and I don't always know what families need. And a fundamental question that I need to start asking a whole lot more of is what do families need? So it's really important. It's a hugely important part of the work ahead of us is that question.
Yeah, and just kind of staying in that vein of that topic there, I think Brett asked a great question. He says, how do we empower people in our communities to do the work and not just the professionals? There's a big burden on the professionals doing all the work, but from what we're talking about here, there's a big community aspect that needs to go into that. So Sharonda, how do we empower the community so the responsibility isn't just leaning on all the professionals?
Well, I'm going to answer this actually in two parts, and I'm actually going to go back to Matt's question about not knowing what's best for someone. I think we do know what's best for someone. I think that, the basic necessities of life, right, are universal, right? And when we encounter people that are struggling in those areas, we understand that housing, food, safety, transportation, right? Those things are essential and things are needed, right? And that if we have those things, that we're actually helping them to achieve the best for them. So I think that foundational wise, those things are just, we all need those things. And when people don't have them, they find themselves in a state of struggle, crisis, and chaos. And then we start to see some of the consequences of that. So I want us to be centered in, we know you don't need anything less than what I need, right? And what I can tell you is that I need my children, I need my community, I need my friends, right? I need supports, I need resources, right? To be able to get up and do another day. So that's for everyone. As far as empowering our people, the first thing is the empowerment of people is providing solutions. Currently, the way that we're set up, right, we have the system in place that says you see a family struggling and in crisis, and you go and you call the intake line, right, that mandated reporting. What are you reporting? The family's struggling, right? Let me report this. We need a mandated supporting system. And the way that we empower our community members is we have those supports in place so that when those calls or those crises are arising, that the community is empowered not to call an intrusive system that can possibly remove your child forever. And I want us to sit with that, right? That a family's in crisis, right? And our remedy is we'll just take your kid forever. It's a startling truth. So let's empower our communities not to dismantle families, but to actually help build them and strengthen them. So I think that the work is in progress. I think that the community and the philanthropy and opportunities are definitely coming more to the surface, and that we are leaning more into our understanding of what we've learned, what we've seen isn't working, and coming back to the table. So I think that you can be innovative and creative. Do not get in a box, right? I don't have any of the answers, right? I love watching what people come up with, and I'm like, oh my God, how do they come up with that? Right? Like, let's not be confined to boxes. Let's be exploratory, adventurous, and daring to achieve something that's never been done, right? Which really is, we see trouble, we answer the need, and we don't just thrust people into a new state of crisis. That's never the answer for you or for me.
And Shrounda, you're just making me think too. So I want to add a thought here, and it's more a series of questions that have been on my mind a lot. And so I'm really curious what others think about this and have to say about it, and even what's happening on the ground. But so many of the families that we work with in child welfare are coming from specific communities, and that's pretty much true around the country, right? There are specific communities that have a high representation of families that encounter the child welfare system. So, as me, as a professional in the field, as others, what are we doing to get into those communities and, learn what's happening, build relationships, but also, can we start to find the solutions already existing in those communities? Right. And so the questions that come up for me sometimes are, if we were to imagine and create something new that's about strengthening families, and it lived in communities where families live, then, where would families go, to find the support that you point out, Shrounda, that we know, all families have and need, right? So where would they actually go? What would the place be? What would it be called? Who would be there, that is doing the work, that's supporting families in times of need? What does it feel like to a family when they show up at that place? Are there programs and services there? And if so, what do they look like? I don't know. I've been asking myself those kinds of questions a lot, because I think that, as we hear people's experiences of services in the system, sometimes it doesn't feel great, right? And sometimes it's not relatable. You've taught me that already, Shrounda, in the little time that we've known each other. And I think that's really important for us to really kind of spend some time sitting with, that where people go and how they feel when they get there really, really matters in terms of how we can, do the work ahead of us.
Hey, I'm just going to throw this thought out, right? Because I think about families that are in a state of need, right? They have some action behind them to remedy whatever the crisis is, right? What happens, right, in those moments? Do we have a space where people can actually remedy their crisis and then actually start to work through not being in a perpetual state of crisis, but actually moving them outside of that, right? So right. I envision in greatness, right, that we have these family support centers. And in those support centers, we're able to answer those concrete immediate needs. And inside of those support centers, we also have education and work and childcare, all of these things, right, that help to start to build a promising future for people, and that they're not fragmented in 10 different places, right? We've anticipated the need, right? Yeah. And then we're there and we're actually working people and helping them get to those steps. I mean, I'm always reminded by my own story, and my own story is really just comprised of some people that came in, saw me in a state of really emotional pain, right? And I was, checking into the world in a way that was not beneficial to me or to them. They confronted me with that, right? And they started to work on me and generate some new ideas and belief systems. And in that, right, I moved through the state of crisis, I moved through the state of anger, and then I moved to a state of thriving, right? And that my life and everything around me now gets to have the benefits of that. So it's not that we arrive, we evolve. And I guess the question is are we in a state of evolution, or do we constantly say, why haven't you figured this out? And my question is, why haven't you figured it out?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question.
That's absolutely incredible. I think what I love about, since the webinar one, we've really been able to have these raw conversations documented and put into video or put into email chains so that we can go back and we can say, okay, we had the conversation. What are some next actionables? So I just want to thank everybody tuning in. I want to thank everybody who commented in the chat so that we can continue to have this conversation and work as professionals to improve, reform, change, move around the system so that we are actually helping families. So we want to continue the conversation even further. Like I said, I'm the social media guy. So if you guys comment down below, I'm going to see all your comments. I want to see how you guys are responding to both Matt and Shrounda's comments on everything. And we want to keep the conversation going. You can also join us for our next webinar coming up on December the 3rd. That's December 3rd. Go to our website, Institute for Family, and you can register for that so that you know when it happens, where it happens, and it's absolutely free. So why not join in on the conversation? I want to thank Matt and Shrounda for taking the time out and talking to us right here. We want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys later.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Bye.
See ya.